Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Success Life Live and Fun Friend Friday with my guest, Barbara Leigh. So glad you took time out of your day to jump in and join us, or if you're watching in the replay or on the YouTube channel or part of the audio channel with the podcast, I am so glad you're here. Good morning, Mr. Larry. I was just reading your thing. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Again, it's Fun Friend Friday. It is my guest, Barbara. Good morning, Miss Melly. Good morning to all of you. Good morning, Todd. Good to see you as well. Love seeing you guys on Facebook in the morning. I love it when I check in the afternoon as well and see the replays and the hashtags and the comments that happen throughout the day. And it was funny the other day, a Fun Friend Friday from, I think it's got to be a month and a half ago. Somebody made a comment of how impactful it was, how they just discovered it, etc. And I thought that's one of the values, that's one of the joys of being allowed to do this thing called Fun Friend Friday and Success Life Live and use Facebook, because once it's out there, it sort of just keeps moving and growing and bumping into the right people in the way that it needs to grow into and bump into people. I do that myself sometimes. I'll be scrolling through a news feed and I'll read something, I'll think, man, that was impactful. How did I miss it? And then I'll come to find out that it may be 2 or 3 weeks old and it just happened to get shared or liked or commented by somebody I knew, and that's how it ended up coming into the top of the Fun Friend, or come into my Facebook feed. So make sure you're sharing out, make sure you're liking and comment, not only on my content, but on the content of other people, because without explaining all of the Facebook mathematics, like I would completely understand every nuance of it, please help me. But understand that as you comment, as you contribute, as you share, Facebook says, oh, this must be something important. I should let more people know about it. And it starts to dribble and drab and drop it in other people's news feed. And that's when it becomes a value. When somebody discovers it at the time that it needs to get discovered. It got legs. Exactly, Joe. I hope you are well. Haven't seen you in forever, and I keep thinking about you and your lovely wife. So I need to check in with the both of you soon. So today is Fun Friend Friday. I'm going to try and bring our guest in. I haven't seen her pop in the room and say hello yet, but that may just be me. So let's see. I don't see her yet, so she must be on the sidelines. Let me do this real quick. It was funny because yesterday Barbara was like so nervous about being able to do this and have it go right, and whether I was going to leave her stranded on the side of the road, so to speak. And I told her, no, we got you covered. We got you covered. And she was like, please make sure I don't mess it up. So I'm going to make sure she doesn't mess it up. I'm going to send her a little message and let her know that we're over here. And off it went. So Barbara, as you step into the room, take a moment, say good morning, say hello, say hi so that I know that you got here. Let me just double check that. So y'all, let's do a 1, 2, 3, let's guess and see. So today it's raining, and that's kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing. You know how it goes when you're really happy that it's raining because you don't have to spend money on the sprinkler bill and it keeps your water bill low. But at the same time, I'm kind of disappointed it's raining because we might not have tennis today. And yesterday was a rain day. My son was like, well, I think we should play tennis today anyhow. And I was like, well, I get that, but I'm not the coach and the instructor and the tennis camp guy. So, nothing I can do about it, kid. But it was interesting because it gave me an opportunity to teach a lesson. And I think sometimes that's the hard part about parenting, is slowing down long enough to see these lessons and not turn them into preaching sessions where you stand up on your parent podium and blah, 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 blah. But to really pour in observational parenting is kind of how we do it. So as we were getting ready, good job, Todd. As we were getting ready and it was raining and I was sending a message to the coach and I hadn't gotten an answer back, I loaded him up in the car and we started down towards the tennis camp. And I was explaining in the process, good morning, Barbara. I'll bring you on screen here in just a minute. So I was explaining to him that we made a commitment to be there and we can't break the commitment. Only the other person can break the commitment or release us from the responsibility. And so we made a commitment to show up and be there, and so we're going to show up and be there unless we're told differently. And then I used it also as a lesson of teaching about, you know what, you got to show up, because if the other guy doesn't, that puts you one game ahead, one day ahead, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have a word of the day kind of thing, and we try and use it 2 or 3 times during the day, and then at dinner we ask what the word of the day is and what did it mean and how did we use it. So last night his word of the day that he ended up reporting back was forfeit and commitment. So he got 2 points for 2 words. That if you don't forfeit and you follow through on your commitments, you could win. So I thought, yay. So rain days can be a good thing. I'm going to grab Barbara real quick. Let me make sure I hit the right buttons. Some days it's just hard having... Barbara, I'm not seeing you in the right mode. So go back and try again. Remember, our phones are in this way. We don't have... Or your iPad, because we test drove it with the iPad. So have your iPad, I guess it can only be in one way. But anyhow, make sure it's long. Make sure the desktop is turned off. And come back in the room. And we will try one more time. I'll send you the link again. Remember, you're watching on the live, not on the desktop. Let me do this real quick for you. So anyhow, it was a great little ability to send him a reminder about, let's follow through on what we said, what we did, what we're gonna do. So often, and it's I think it's just kidness, that he'll say, oh, I want to take piano lessons, or I want to take this, or I want to do this, and he'll get all excited at the beginning, and then a week in, 2 weeks in, 3 days in, whatever, it's suddenly like, I'm not interested. And so before we begin anything like that, before we sign up, say yes, follow through, like during the Christmas pageant and things like that, I'll pull out a calendar, I'll put out a schedule, I'll sit down and say, look, this is what it's going to require of us, this is where we got to be, this is what we got to do, these are the sacrifices, the trade-offs, et cetera, et cetera. Do you still want to do it? And if he says yes, then I'm like, okay, so we're committed to this. And he kind of knows now in our dad language that when I say you're committed to this, it's like I'm going to be in, and if I'm in and you're in, then we're all in. Got it? And he's like, got it. And so typical with 9, 10, probably clear up into 20-year-olds, about halfway through or something else will come up, or he'll see another opportunity and he'll want to drop one and move to the next. And I'm like, no, you made a commitment. You said you were committed to this, and you've got teammates and other parents and coaches and things involved. Unless they release you, you got to follow through. And that's kind of the way we teach that commitment lesson, that it's sort of that covenant lesson in a biblical sense, is that when we step in, the only one that can release us is someone else. That we don't get to decide that it's over and it's out and we're done. That we have to you know what? If we made a commitment to somebody else, to a team, to a coach, to a program, to a something, they have to release us. They have to let us go. Now, I get, as we move into adulthood, there's safety and there's, protecting ourselves. There's other situations. But for where he's at right now, you can't just decide you're not involved anymore after you decided to step in. And so that's our rule. Let me double check and see if I can find Barbara again. It looks like she hasn't signed back in. Let me just check over here on the messaging. It's so fun when people get nervous about the technology. Let me just see what's going on. And then I have to do both live TV and technology IT training. Just give me a minute. Let's see if she pops back in. She's looking for a link. So here's the funny thing. I do this, well, as you guys know, I do this every day. And often when we do something regularly, we forget that maybe other people aren't as familiar, aren't as comfortable. And I'll say this often in corporations, they have all of these internal languages and they expect everybody from the outside to know it. So that all of a sudden you'll have somebody using internal codes, internal descriptions or phrases or ideas. And outside people don't get it. And they're like, well, why aren't our customers communicating? Why aren't they don't understand? Why is this, it's like, well, you guys are speaking a family language. You guys are speaking an internal language and you haven't educated the outside, or because you do this every single day, you expect everybody else to know exactly what it is. And that's not the way it works. And so just like with this Facebook Live, that we test drive it and we go through it and then I jump up and get going because there we go. See, it works. Barbara's got it. So sometimes when you have internal languages, when you have internal cultures and in your company, within your family, within your organization, within your team, within your own business, the things that you do and produce, you got to make sure that the other team is as language centered as you
Okay.
are. Ta-da! See?
Yay!
Da, da, da,
I'm
da.
here.
We're
Okay,
here.
wait, let me see if I can turn this.
And I think I got 4 points for being able to fill this space as we did it all.
Okay, the camera on my iPad doesn't, okay, I gotta be looking
You're
this way.
perfect. So again, as she settles in, one of the responsibilities we have as influencers and leaders and teachers is to learn to use the language of the audience, to learn to use the language of the people, not our own internal language. And an example of that was when I lived overseas and I used the word I develop leaders and people would spit on my shoe. And I was like, what is this about? In some cultures, leaders are perceived as negative. They're perceived as dictators and politicians and corrupt. I had to figure out a different language.
Okay, I think I've got it. I've got the other laptop over here, and now I'm looking at you, and I'm looking. Okay, here's the little where I gotta look at the little dot.
You are like frame centered, easy, and you look like one of those morning coffee news people.
Oh yes, here.
Yeah. I love Amy. Amy Lyle's like, you're so calm in the middle of this. Amy, and I gotta say, I think just as a side note and a starting point, I've sort of adopted this philosophy that as long as nobody dies, or at least is taken into critical care, it's okay. Because in the scheme of things and the things that I've been through in life and the things that I faced, having a messed up Facebook, it's kind of low down the scale, nothing personal. I've had some issues that probably had more drama than this. So good morning and welcome. How are you?
Hey, thank you very much. And thanks for the patience, everybody. I mean, Eric does this brilliantly. This is not a fault of his. This is all on me. Yeah, but good morning.
But this is her first Facebook Live, her first anything like this. And so yesterday, I sent medication because I thought she was going to need it. She was a little bit nervous, but we're good and go. So tell everybody where you're calling from.
I'm calling in from Curaçao, which is in the Dutch Caribbean. It used to be part of the Netherlands Antilles, and now it is status apart since 10-10-10. So it's a beautiful area. It's a travel destination. So a lot of people travel here. In fact, Monica Rogers Fletchers was just here a couple of weeks ago. And generally, if there are JMTers coming over, they like to stop in, say hello. Sherry Riley was here, and of course, Paul Martinelli's been here a couple of times. But everybody, and Elizabeth McCormick, she comes and speaks every 2 years here. She gets on the cruise ship, she stops in, and then she flies back to her next destination to catch the cruise ship.
How fun. So I know this isn't a travel show. So Curacao, so when I travel,
fan. It's hot here.
It's hot here. So it's just below the equator?
It's close. It's just below. Yeah, we're pretty close to the equator, and we're very close to Venezuela.
Like so any time of year is beach weather?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, they say there's no rainy season, but there is during November, December, January, but it hasn't. In fact, only a couple of days ago it rained, but it's been dry, dry, and hot, really hot, like sweaty hot,
I see you.
like sweaty
I
hot. Ah,
Well, so I'm going to give you the TV version. So we call it Waist Up Productions. It's kind of like the idea that do judges wear clothes underneath their robe? You know, so you always like dress cool for the bottom, but you keep the collar tight and clean. That's how
ah.
I sort of like, you got to have a
So,
fan down by your feet.
are you
So,
imagining I have shorts on now?
yes,
Yeah,
because that's just
pajama
the way we
pants.
do it. My TV station someday is going to be Waist Up Production. So if anybody steals it, I'll know where you stole it from. So you live on the island of Curacao.
Yes, I do. For the last 30 years.
You say that like it's a hardship.
Uh, well, it's not, it's a hot ship, but yeah, no, it's not a hardship. I really love it here. And it's been about 30 years, maybe over 30 years now on the
And you
island.
had said that you're a member of the JMT. And so for those who are watching that are not part of the John Maxwell team, the internal abbreviation, and like we talked about in the internal or the intro, is sometimes you got to break down. We call it the JMT or the John Maxwell team. And that's simply means that Barbara has been certified as a coach and a trainer and a speaker through the John Maxwell organization. You're a founding member or
I
pretty
am.
close?
I'm actually was at the West Palm Beach with all of the other founding partners, the very first 400, 500, because they couldn't fit us all in the room at one time. They had to do 2 back-to-back trainings. So I'm part of the first 500 that were certified with Bob Kittredge, all Barbara Littles, all of the Bs were at the one table together. So yes.
And now it's 23,000, 25,000. You know, it's sort of like when those Twitter repeats start going so fast, you just round it up to the next biggest known number. But I
It's
think the
crazy.
goal, I don't know, when we had Jill here 2 weeks ago, I know they were targeting in on that 20, like they were like so close, they were waiting for the phone to ring for number 25,000.
Yeah, I mean, for us right now, that's, you know, 1/4 of 100,000. And when we first started, they didn't even know, as Paul Martinelli would say, who were going to be the first 500. The room was booked, everything was paid for, and they had to, you know, as Paul said, have the faith that the people would come. And they did. The first 1,000 did come.
So how has JMT or being a member of the John Maxwell team and being one of the founding members, which was a position where it was like, okay, did I sign up for something that's going to go bust next week? You know, let's be honest. And I'm not criticizing anybody or anything, but I'm sure there was the fear as you looked around, like, did I make the right decision? How is that going from that moment to your last IMC, which was 20, I don't know how many people were there, 3, 4,000 people in the room?
A little less than 3,000. Yeah,
So you
from
went from 200 morning session.
around 500.
Yeah, so you went from 500 split between a morning and an afternoon session to 4,000 in a single room. How, you've seen the external growth. What has the internal growth been for you?
Internal growth in the sense of being at the foundation of anything getting started means um, you have that opportunity. And what you said at the beginning was, were you worried about things going bust? Well, I was in transition and I was looking for a transition. And it was the best opportunity to come in at that time because John came to Curacao to speak live. And he had just come off the March big event and came here and offered us the opportunity to be part of the team. So I raised my hand. That was the first of the yeses that I would commit to. And yes, there was a fear. There was a fear that I didn't know Paul Martinelli. I didn't know anybody else. I just knew John Maxwell. And yet, the fear wasn't greater than the excitement of the transition of change and opportunity. And so I jumped on board. And then after that, I jumped on board every year and stayed on board serving in many different capacities. So the growth on the internal side has been great because I've stayed connected as a PAC member, as a SAC member, as a program coordinator. So growing for me was inevitable, or they say growth is optional, right? Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. And I still believe that you can read a book, but if you don't take action, it doesn't matter. So there's still a lot that I have to repeat because I'm a slow learner. As you can see with
I'm the
Facebook.
slowest of the group,
As
so
you
feel
can see with
proud.
Facebook.
No, you did great. So I think it's interesting because you sort of solve one of the questions that I often get asked, and I'm sure you do too as a coach, is, I don't feel motivated. I just don't have the momentum. I don't feel motivated. And I love the idea that you realized in order to maintain that motivation, that momentum, that you had to check in. And then you had to deep dive into the involvement. I think, and I speak from experience, my experiences, often my learning process is from observational mode. So I like to pull back and watch. Mm-hmm. And that's a really slow place to be. And so I like that idea that if you're starting something new, if you're committed to being in transition, if you're making that commitment after you raised your hand, that you got to like just keep raising it. Like if they're like, who wants to pass out napkins? Raise your hand. Who wants to, stand at the door and count people? Raise your hand. Because though they may seem non-glamorous positions or non-glamorous opportunities, it keeps that momentum tank full.
Hummingbird.
Here I would do squirrel. So yeah, I love that idea of that when you raise your hand, just keep it up. Just keep it up. Like even if they're like, what do you need? I need to go to the bathroom. Anything to stay in momentum.
I think you're absolutely right with that. People, Eric, used to ask me, how do you continue to stay engaged but also be engaged? And I said, it's that hand raising, that yes, I will do it. And right now, I serve on the in the back with on the setup team. I mean, we work hard, the setup team. We have a very tough duty, especially if there are 3,000 people. We're in the room every day, making sure that everything is set up until late. And now that they've added the other components, it gets even more challenging because we're in the room much longer. But we have great leaders at the front taking care of everything for us. That's Lorna Weston Smythe. She takes care of the backup, and we're there as leads. And so we have a team of about 30 people.
So, and I know our topic today, we talked about unconditional love, but you're going to watch how I segue in. You guys don't panic. So my question would be, because I'm a person, and I know it seems hard to believe for those people who are probably going to choke on their coffee in a minute, but I always feel like I'll be asked, not because it's prideful or because, like I'm on a pedestal, but more if they need me, they'll ask. If they think that I have the talent or the ability, they'll ask. If they think that I could do the job and add value, they'll ask. It's sort of like I don't want to be presumptuous and raise my hand and then be like, yeah, no, we've seen you, decorate a cake. Go sit down. I'd rather have them be like, we have seen you decorate a cake. Would you please do us this favor? And that's not like a prideful statement. I think it really comes more from insecurity and fear of being rejected. That, if I raise my hand, they're going to say, no, Barbara's got it, or somebody else has got it. How did you do that? How did you say, I may not have enough, be enough, or know enough, but I'm going to keep my hand up? How did you do that?
That's a great question, Eric. And I think when you raise your hand and you step into a position, you never know if you're going to be a success or a total failure or the need. Yeah. I mean, you're raising your hand, and that's like the enthusiastic hand raiser and saying, I want to try, I want to do this, and I want to see if that is something that I enjoy doing. So there's a benefit on the other side of finding out, is it something that I enjoy doing? As well as, am I good at it? And if I'm not very good at it, it's probably something I don't enjoy and I'm not passionate about. So you got an opportunity to kind of feel your way. And even though you may be getting moved around, I think the movement, if I've seen with most people, the ones that have gone from the bottom up, that have had experiences in all levels, they have a big, great view of what's going on. And that's not everybody. That's like a few people have that on the team that have been in different positions. I've also been a program coordinator for a couple of years. So that was a different perspective. We learned about cells. And for me, it was very important to just stick with it. And then if it was working, continue. Sometimes you serve out of loyalty. And sometimes you serve, you serve out of loyalty because there are people that need you, and it gives them the benefit of knowing that somebody is taking care of something that knows what they're doing, and I don't have to worry about that. I'm a pretty high I, so being in setup with, loading papers and things like that, that's not like being on stage and doing the pom-poms where they were calling, and yet I stayed on setup. So part of that, again, there's an unconditional loyalty to doing things that help others perform better.
I think that's a really good point, and a lot of people will talk about Mark Cole and the way he walks behind in such a perfect walk behind position, that often the hand raising can be about, I want to explore what I can do, what I can learn, where I can grow. So when you're in an organization, when you're, even if it's, joining a gym and being in a spin class, sometimes taking that bike along the front row is a way of raising your hand. It moves you out of the back corner, or being the first one in class, or things like that. Or, if you're in a faith-based organization, getting there early and helping. So there's a lot of times that it's not necessarily who wants to come on stage and volunteer versus, okay, I can choose to observe and be in wall mode, or I can choose to participate. And I don't know what participation looks like, but the only way I'm going to know if it's something I'm good at is to try it. And if I'm doing it from a position of following and faithfulness and servantness, even if I screw it up, at least my intention was right.
Yeah, good intentions and followed up by intentional action is very important. And then somewhere you may discover a talent in yourself that you didn't know existed before. Wow, I saw a hummingbird, and now I saw a little thing crawling behind your back.
Yes, little thing has crawled into the office, and she has busted free.
Yeah. So I think that's important as well, is you might discover that I'm a pretty high I, but there's a lot of deep C in me, as they call a closet C. And that closet C shows up in different activities, which makes, people like me for that role and people not like me for that role.
So again, breaking down internal language, a high I versus a high or a closet C. We're talking about DISC profiles. DISC profiles, you can Google it, but in shorthand, it's a behavioral style that we're naturally inclined to. It's not an IQ test. It's not a personality test. It doesn't define your failure and success. But it basically says, I typically operate in this mode unless intentionally interjected on, or unless I make an intentional action to change my natural expression. And an I is a red. It's a stage setter. It's a spotlight. It's somebody that can rally the troops and charge the hill and get people excited over the silliest of things, because that's they're infectious. Whereas a C is that yellow, calculated, cautious, planning, plotting, accountant, and there's D's and there's S's. So when she says she's a high I, she loves the pom-poms and the spirit and the energy of creativity and enthusiasm, making a room come alive.
Yeah.
And then her closet C is the person that does balance her checkbook at least once a month and can finish a project.
And that's because of the environment, right? Your environment has an impact on your behavior.
Yeah. And so for me, I love my C time. I love shutting down, closing out, being by myself, and zeroing in. And people will be like, yeah, but you're a high I. I'm like, no, there's moments that I need that. And so discovering and talking about DISC as she shows up.
Hey.
So
hummingbird.
Now you said hi. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
I don't know. Can they see? They only see you,
right?
Hi.
How old are you today?
9.
When did you get for your birthday? Yeah, I know. It's so much pain answering the same question for
Hey,
different.
Tanya.
Um,
Yeah.
so can you go to your room and listen
Hey,
to your
Mark.
music? See, you got everybody in the room now.
Oh, well,
Um, oh, good.
these
Her
people have
brother's
all
here.
been to the
Can you go
IMCs.
take iPads? Can you go take Eva?
There's-
Sorry. Normally the door is closed, but yesterday I failed. I failed. My
I'm getting
seal was
very
getting
used to
closed.
working with kids because I'm doing the I Choose, I Lead with 23 youth.
Close the door. Goodbye.
Hey, Mark, and
Sorry.
I'm not used to working with youth. I'm more used to working with corporate. And I have 11-year-olds, even a 9-year-old, up until an 18-year-old. So the spread is wide. So it's been very interesting. We do it
So
every
the I
Thursday.
Choose is it's a youth curriculum about personal development and leadership and self-esteem that John Maxwell team members take out into the community and share with organizations. So again, if you're a John Maxwell team member or know a John Maxwell team member and want to connect to that organization, reach out and find us. So we said we were going to talk about unconditional love.
Yes.
And the reason I sort of felt that for you as we were planning our day is because one of the things that I love about you
Yeah, sorry.
is you're a pack leader.
I am a pack leader. I'm a pack leader in a couple of ways, yeah?
Yes. And that you open your home to anything. Yes. That's my high D. That's my if there's four, if you can only have one characteristic, hers is D.
Oh.
There's nothing else on her profile. I think it's D followed by D followed by D. She's as you can see the expression.
Yeah.
She's just I's and D's sometimes don't
That's
work
me.
well.
I'm an ID. ID.
I'm an
High
ID.
ID.
Yeah, but she's a higher D than I am, so it becomes. But anyhow, you're a pack leader, and I say that not in the John Maxwell sense, but you rescue pretty much any animal on the island.
I have a heart for animals, you could say.
So
Yes.
where did that? I mean, we all have our dog, our cat, our goldfish, but there's got to be something about when you reach that maximum number of 3 or 10, and that you begin to forfeit yourself and your personal needs to build a wall, to put up a gate, to buy extra dog food, to herd more animals into your house because there's a storm coming, to spend ridiculous amounts of money on vet bills just because nobody else will.
Yes.
Why? And I say that with all compassion for our one dog.
Yes, and my zoo crew has grown to 5 rescue dogs, 2 rescue cats, and 1 parrot, Poncho. And it's a great question, and I think it has, if I look back at my younger days, between the environment and animals, there are things that I've always been attracted to, and a lot of that has been things without a voice, and animals don't have a voice. And I have this heart for them when they're in struggle because they truly epitomize unconditional love to the 10th degree. I mean, they wag their tail. You could give them a spank and the next day they're back wagging their tail. And even, if you leave for 2 minutes and you come back in the door, they're wagging their tail. They really epitomize unconditional love. And I don't have children, so my kids are animals. So my big why is, besides having the heart, who else is going to speak up for them? And I like to speak up for the environment, for the youth, and for the animals, because all 3 have something in common. They don't have a real voice.
I love that. That was just when you said that, I was like, you're right. They don't have a voice.
Yes.
And so,
Correct.
in the absence of a voice, somebody has to choose to be the voice. And you've chosen to become that voice.
Yes, I've chosen to put time, energy, and resources. And it's truly, as you say, when I go to the grocery store, 57 pounds of dog food, 10 cans of uh, wet food, and that's just for the dogs for 3 weeks. And then there's the cats, they get their, quota. And then Poncho, he's on a strict diet. So his diet is, his food lasts a while, but it's still about 190 guilders a bag, which is about $50 for a little bag of food. And he had to get switched from seed to this coarse protein. So you're doing things like you would for a child because they're not feeling well or they need better ways of eating. I had to transition him. I was at a training and he was at the vet and he got transitioned to the coarse food. So it is expensive. Their budget is, I think, higher than my own budget.
Which I think is interesting because, as you said, when you're at a training and traveling, somebody has to take over the herd, and that's often a paid professional or assistant because it is such high managed care when you have that many and those uniqueness.
Well, you get creative too. I just found out, and I've been searching, I've been giving them their injections, and it's taking like 3 at a time to the vet, and sometimes it can be hazardous. I mean, this is unconditional love. I have 7 animals, so I have to take a couple at a time, and they're all scheduled between June, July, and August. So this one time, I took Tiger, I took Tebow, and I took a dog. And it was Tiger's turn to get vetted. And of course, they do the little butt check, which is for worms. And she said, "Can you hold the head of the cat?" And I said, "Sure, I'll hold him." So she goes in once, and he's getting a little tense, and then, he's still not feeling very well. And then I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm trying to get the instrument in, but his butthole is closed." And I'm like, uh-oh. And then she shoves it in the last time, and Tiger just takes a bite into my hand. So all of a sudden, he doesn't get his injection, and I have to go to the doctor to get one, a Technic shot. So out of the blue, he doesn't get it, but I do with my hand, and I go into my mastermind group with it all wrapped up and swollen because he's taken a huge bite. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. I bring him in to get a shot, and I'm the one now rushing out to get a shot. And that's what happened, but I learned my lesson.
I would say you need to find a vet that does home visits, even if it costs you to cook a fabulous island dinner. But I want to sort of go back a step because you said that they don't have a voice, so somebody has to. Often we serve where we need it. And what I mean is we serve from a place that maybe in our past that we needed somebody in that position, and they either were or weren't available. And so when was it that you felt voiceless, and what did that person that stepped in or should have stepped in look like? Because often as leaders and influencers, we might be missing those people who appear to have a voice but truly don't.
I left the States and I came to Curacao. And in Curacao, of course, it's a foreign country, there's no family. I was divorced and I was integrating and didn't have a job. So I kind of felt that I had no voice. Who could I speak to? Who would understand me? I wasn't in a good situation. I didn't have my family. So I think there was a time that I felt I didn't have much of a voice. I had to slowly grow again. Once you hit rock bottom, there's a part of you that has to start loving you again because you've hit rock bottom. The unconditional love, I think that's important in this sense, is your unconditional love for yourself, which is not giving up in a situation where you could, where I was deeper than deep. I didn't feel happy. I couldn't understand what was going on, yet I knew these were my choices. But my choices also led me to being responsible in the sense of not flying back all the way home to have somebody take care of me because I made a decision that put me deep in the weeds. I said the only way to get out of this, and I struggled for 3 years. And at that time, I think I was feeling really down And I was telling you, I used to carry my parrot because my parrot was with me. Actually, my parrot lasted longer than my husband, which is 30 years. And I used to bring him everywhere with me because he was my companion. I felt there was somebody that was part of the family, and that was him. There was nobody else. So I think at that point, yeah, that could be my voiceless time. Normally, I'm not like that at all.
Well, but because you experienced that moment of voiceless, that moment of not feeling loved, self-love as well as, you know, there,
Yes.
though your family loved you, they weren't there every day to pour it into you and visualize it. You had just moved from an experience of love to like, what the poop happened? I thought you and
Yes.
me and the parrot were going to be together forever. Now I just got this parrot.
Well, there was a
um,
dog too. Yeah, there was
oh,
a
no.
dog. Yeah.
So now, because, and I think that's where we grow best is when we, or serve best is when we can say, you know what, I don't need, I know what this feels like. I know what this position is. And though my situation is different than your situation, I know what that pain's like. So my goal in life is now to go through and make sure that all of those who are voiceless, from animals to children to the environment, have somebody advocating on their behalf as a voice. Who was the voice for you? Was it internal or external during that time?
That's a great question. I'm rewinding now. At that time, and I'm faith-based, and I was thinking, how is this, why is my life like this? And what do I need to do to slowly get beyond it? And I was, I believe in prayer, and I prayed a lot, and I cried a lot. I prayed and I cried, and I prayed and I cried, and I was wondering, you know, when is this going to shift? When is my life going to be more than praying and crying? Praying still continues, and once in a while in the tears, but I had to take steps in a new direction. And also, you needed people to come alongside of you that were willing to support you. And I really am a true believer. And again, this has to do with being able to help and support people when they're down. When people are down, that's when they need the most help. They don't need to be put 10 levels lower than that. They need support. They need somebody to come along and walk by them. And maybe at that time, for me, that was God. So for others, and they say this for children, it takes one adult to come alongside a child to change the course of his life, like you have, Eric. Right?
Yeah, this is your show. So, but I think it's interesting because you've used the expression like multiple times, alongside.
Yes.
What does alongside look like to you?
Alongside is flagging somebody on the left or the right where they need the support, and being present but not being in their face, and not being behind them. So when you come alongside somebody, they know you're there, but they almost feel like they're walking on their own because they don't see you from the front and they don't feel you from behind. You're not their shadow. What you are is somebody that is coming alongside of you that allows that support. That's that borrowed belief that you require when things aren't going right. And when you have that, you can keep walking forward. You don't fall backward. You can keep walking forward. And that person comes along and they believe in you. So I believe in these animals that they deserve another chance. So I walk alongside of them. In fact, it's very hard not to want to take in more. I have the space, but the time and the finances, like a dog just got his big tumor removed. We need somebody to take care of him that's home part of the time. I put dogs in the apartment. They've gone from street dog to apartment dog because the apartment's free. So that's a luxury life, but it's the transition I need to put them in, because if I don't, my zoo crew and them coming together immediately is not always the best. So they got to be slowly integrated. So all the other dogs get put away and the dog from the apartment comes out. The dog goes back into the apartment and then all the other dogs come out. And I do this until I can integrate them socially. So I have this heart and I have a space, but sometimes the finances aren't always there to take care of the animals. So this tumor dog now got his surgery, but they're looking for somebody to bring him in to take care of him because he has somebody that's going to adopt him in Netherlands. So I'm like, oh gosh, I can do it. I can do it. No, I can't. Yes, I can. So there's this internal battle of, well, you say you love animals unconditionally. Why wouldn't you? So you like batter yourself with, are you living up to what you say you are, or is it just convenience? And then you got to ask yourself, you know, who am I helping? Why am I helping them? And if it is your passion, then how many can you help? So I've been really challenged to keep my numbers at a certain quota, because if you don't, you know what they call you after that, right? A
Crazy.
hoarder, animal hoarder. I don't want to be an
But I think
animal
it's
hoarder. I
interesting.
want to be an animal lover and rescuer, not a hoarder.
And you know, it's interesting because you see those people on TV, and I don't know if they exist in Curacao, but trust me, they do here. Where like they'll take this crew in, and this woman will have like 100 cats living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and they're all, you know, mangy and they're not cared for. Just because you have a passion and a desire doesn't mean that you can always execute. And so I think you're right. There is a division between my heart is to serve animals, but am I serving animals or am I feeding my heart? Because at some point there's a limit. There's a no, that it's like, I am not the best resource for a horse. I mean, as much as I want to serve it, it's not where I can serve them best. And so I love that. What I want to go back to, and I love that idea that to you, unconditional love is somebody that chooses a side and walks there until needed.
Yeah, there's a recent story in Curacao, and there was somebody that was on the board that I was when I was serving on the board, and they recently, at that time, they needed help, and I came alongside and I helped put them in the right positions, and they prospered. Well, they kind of fell off the horse recently in a big way. And yet that person is fully responsible for something on the island that's very important in moving it, that I believe in, which is the environment. And so, you know, all of a sudden I found myself offering to walk alongside again when I can. And so you don't always have to be there all the time. But if it's somebody that you care about that is also doing something that is positive for the where you're living or your island state, and you want to promote or, you know, make sure that that stays at a high level, then you continue to walk alongside of them, because their growth is important. So I there's
I,
sometimes you do that, you take a break, and then when they're doing really well, and then you're offering them for like a mastermind group, keep up their leadership abilities, but they don't have time. Then you got to think about, well, they got to be willing. They got to have a desire and be willing. If they're not, you're wasting your time. And you got to wait
I,
until the opportunity comes up again. So
I
this is
love,
also like unconditional love at a distance.
I love that idea. You are so good at this lesson that in order, unconditional, like if we were going to write out what it looks like, it starts from offering. Like you can't force unconditional love on a dog, and you can't force it on another person. And I've been around animals long enough that if you come in too hard, too heavy, boom, you're about to get nipped or kicked. It depends. So I love that idea that first unconditional love has to be offered. It has to be from a position of being alongside. You can't be a leader. You can't come in as a leader and be unconditional. Like, I'm not going to lead you towards something. I'm going to walk beside you, that it is a side by side. And sometimes it's on the left, sometimes it's on the right, but it's based on what they need. And I think of that with my daughter, I always get her sides mixed up. Her right side is weak.
Mm.
And so whenever we're walking as a family, my son can switch hands because he can be on my right or be on my left. But she has to have her left hand connected to me because her right hand doesn't.
Mm.
And so I love that she's always needs me on one particular side, whereas my son can take me from either. So I love that image of unconditional love is coming alongside. And it may be for a season, a session, or for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just like with your animals, some of them have been with you much longer than others. And that our job is those people who want to be servants and approach life with unconditional love, understand that we're only here for as long as they need us and that they may call us back, but that's their choice, not ours.
I think that's, parents, they have a hard time when it's time to let their kids fly the coop because they've
No,
come
no.
alongside of them for so long, and then it's their time to really blossom. And then you realize that unconditional love that you put in and instilled in them stays with them. That's their life force. You breathe that life force into them. And when they go out, you're praying that they make the right choices and the decisions because they feel so loved that they don't have doubt or fear.
Yeah.
They have strength and courage because they know themselves and they're supported.
It's interesting, and I see Melanie's here, our Parenting with a Purpose guru. I've had to really tune in to when my child does a behavior, explaining that I like you, I don't like what you're doing. I love you, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like your behavior, or or what you're displaying isn't
Yeah,
who you are. That I
right.
really have to be careful that the external is not a reflection of the internal.
Right.
And often I'll
Separating the
say,
being from the behavior, you
yes.
say.
And so I'll say, I know that you're kinder than what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
And things like that. So that he's like, it's kind of a guilt trip. It's a parent thing.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, just like with your animals, you do whatever it takes to get them to take the medication. It's the same thing with parenting. You do whatever it takes to get them to learn the lesson. And sometimes it's that reverse psychology, reverse double back switch, flip over turn that you try and throw at them to make them get it. I love that image of unconditional love because sometimes I think especially people of faith see unconditional love as sort of like a push down, like, oh, your heavenly father loves you unconditional, like there's this thing, like this gap, like this positional, like he sits up there on his golden throne with all of the angels and like that church image, and he
Mm-hmm.
loves you unconditionally, like there's a separation. And I love that image that you brought up, that unconditional love requires us to come alongside silently and just offer that nudge of support that's needed
Mm-hmm.
when they start to stumble, when they need something. And I can see it. I'm a visual learner that, like my daughter, when I'm holding her hand and I know she's getting ready to step up on a curb
Mm-hmm.
because of the way her legs operate, I know
Right.
she's going to lean into me to get that sway lift because her knee doesn't bend right. She doesn't need me the whole time she's walking, but just when she gets to that obstacle.
So imagine Eric over nurturing something, over nurturing
I
anything.
couldn't do that.
It's gonna, when you over nurture anything, you're gonna kill it. Like if you over water a plant, you think, oh, I gotta water it, I gotta water it. You're coming alongside too often, and it doesn't need that. But if you don't water it enough, it won't prosper. So there's really a very fine dance between coming alongside with unconditional love because you can suffocate somebody with it, or you can give them the unconditional love that really allows them to prosper. And for me, that's really important, is not to over nurture because they need to become self-knowledgeable, self-dependent. They need to start to rely on their inner compass. And if you're giving them too much, but they need to know that you're there. That's why I could sustain myself in Curacao, even though my family was away. I made a very, and now I call it a strategic, but a very smart choice to stay so that I could overcome my decisions because it gave me a very strong backbone. And I also learned, and this was unconditionally loving myself, that I could sustain myself anywhere despite the circumstances.
I love that. I've been that journey, and people that haven't had it don't. I don't want to say they don't understand, but that moment where it's like, okay, I've got nothing but this thing looking back at me in the mirror.
Yeah.
So you better make this thing work because, you know, there ain't nobody coming to your rescue. There ain't nothing going to change unless you take control of it.
But if
How
you're not,
did you move?
sorry, if you're not kind to yourself, Eric, when you're looking in the mirror, you can beat yourself up to death. If you look in the mirror and you're not kind to yourself, then how are you going to perform in the outside world when the
So
inside world is chaos?
How did you make that first? So I know I'm over assuming. So you
Go
were in
ahead.
that place of, yeah, people know me. They know
Go
I'm
ahead.
over assuming. So you were in that place of like, okay, I'm on an island by myself with a dog and a parrot, no money, no job, no housing, no family, nobody to call in the middle of the night and tell them what a bitch my life has turned out to be. And this isn't the way I planned it. And somebody better fix it fast because Barbara's not happy.
Yeah.
How did you move from that? How did you move from, sorry to bring it back, but I'm sure there was that moment.
Oh, yeah, that was a painful time.
What was the first thing you said to yourself, or the first recollection you have of being like, you know what, Barbara, you're okay. I love you. How did you find that moment? Because there are people that are probably repeating the story that I just said, but changing the name from Barbara to whatever. How did you step forward instead of just collapse?
Collapsing was a part of my day every day, right? The crying and hiding into the I had the apartment. I had left everything the ex-husband needed to prosper, the van and all the dive gear, but I didn't have a job. There was a point, and I think you have to hit the bottom. I mean, the bottom is hard, it's cold, it's dark, but once you hit that bottom and there's nowhere else to go, you have to start looking up. And once my eyes started to look up and I could say, okay, what's, again, this one step? What's the one step that I can take that's going to make my life better? And I had the fortune of having a really excellent landlord. It was a lady. She taught me two things. She taught me empathy for your tenant, and she also, when you have an apartment, make it as if you're going to live in there. And that's what she always did. And the second one was when I was in strife and in struggle, she said, you know what? Don't worry about paying the rent. When you're back on your feet and you can start paying half, we'll start there. So she was coming alongside of me at that point because I needed the support. The other side would have been simply, you don't pay the rent, you're out. Now, how would that have helped me? That would have put me in a worse situation, worse position, mentally and physically. And I would have been with my bird and my dog. I wouldn't have left them. So that when people can do that, and they, again, this is unconditional love at different layers and degrees. This is the landlord supporting me and showing me care and kindness at a time I was devastated. I mean, if she did that, I would have, found a deeper hole to go. But because she didn't, she gave me hope. And hope is a drug that everybody can use when they're down, deep. So I took that first piece of hope and I climbed a little higher and the light got a little brighter and I said, okay, I need to get some cash now. We put some money down payment on furniture. So I pulled that out and I said, that's dog money, food money, and that put it brighter. I could start to sustain myself a little bit. And then you do need a little bit of luck. You still need people coming alongside of you that are working towards. And I just told somebody this the other day, the person that actually has been arrested. I said they don't need more people to stay away from them. They need the right people to come alongside of them to know they're not alone. And that's whether you're in prison behind bars or you're in prison because of your own self-made doing. And people need to recognize that about your friends, your family. Are you imprisoned and, you're outside of prison, but you're still in prison? And how do I come alongside? How do I pay attention to that? How do I share unconditional love with that individual that is respectful within their boundaries of the assistance that they're willing to accept at a certain time?
I,
Because,
I, I love I love this lesson. You are doing so
oh,
phenomenally well. For
thanks.
somebody that was like, so y'all, I have to tell you, you got to send hearts and loves, because last night she's like, I have no idea what you're going to make me talk about. What are we doing? I'm like, just trust the process. And she was freaking out. Poor Barbara was like, but can we practice? What should I write? I need to get my notes ready. And I said, you don't get that permission. So you have done an amazing job. And when you get to go back and read the comments, trust me, you have hit beyond a home run. It
Oh,
is
thanks.
off the island. Because what you have taught us today is that unconditional love really looks more like hope.
Hope blended with forgiveness.
I love, because love is hard, because what I see is love, or we have the 5 languages of love, and some of us have been told we're loved and then scarred by love, and
Yeah.
some of us have grown up so love is big. Like, love is taken on the whole planet, kind of bite-sized thing.
Love is
But
universal, huge.
yeah, and it's sometimes hard for us when we're not feeling worthy, when we're not feeling strong, when we're not feeling our best. Love is a big one.
Yes.
And I love when Liz was here a couple weeks ago and she said, just open yourself to the possibility of joy. Not like to joy, just the possibility is the first step. And I love that you have said that unconditional love is more about hope and forgiveness. And that if you want to be somebody who offers unconditional love to people, to children, to the planet, to the animals, you first got to give them hope.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the kibbles and bits in a bowl in an apartment that they don't have to fight for. Sometimes it's just giving them a kind word. And then you've got to let them know that how they showed up is not who they are. That you just offer that state of forgiveness. Like, you know what? You may look like a mangy old mud-rotten, flea-bitten dog,
Yes.
but that's not who you are. I will show you who you are. Trust me. And I think that's why when I was hearing that idea of the way you see the world through those animals, the way those animals have helped you see unconditional love and express unconditional love and feel unconditional love, I think that message is so universal to what we need as people, as adults, and as children. You've just refined it to, I was going to say 4-legged creatures, but you got a couple 2-legged and no-leggeds.
Yes.
What is the gift that they've given you? Because you've given them kibbles and bits and vet bills and apartments and comfy blankets and, flea baths. What is it that they've given you?
Wow. Unconditional love. They've given me the love back. When you give love in unconditional love, that love comes back, especially in the animals. They know. I will post some pictures of before and after, what they look like before and how they have transformed after you've nurtured them and given them love to let them know. And I think Joe just put that, who they can be. So I mean, they give me joy. I get joy, and I think that's a lot higher than happiness. They give me the joy of being able to take care of them, but also when I come home, there's this, okay, it's quiet. I made sure I fed them before this audio, and so they're a little bit quiet outside now, and maybe, appearance by Poncho is possible. He's out in his cage. And this is the other thing. I won't cage another bird because I feel they do need to run free, and I'm happy to see the hummingbird outside. But he is now crippled. He has a pretty long story of incidences. He's like a cat with 9 lives. But I won't cage any more animals. I really believe they need to be free, and you need to observe them and love them unconditionally from a distance. And the rescues that I have, they've come in all different ways, but my oldest one is 12 years old. His name is Simba. I love that he is like the Lion King. He's quiet. He has the worst teeth ever, though. I'm going to have to get him to a dentist. But he's the one that is really grounded. And Kanoa is the newest one that came on, and he's like high energy, high I. And you can see there's like grandfather and the grandson or the little kid. So for me, they're a constant source of entertainment. Sparky is my, what do you call it? He's got
Overbite.
Overbite, and he loves hanging with me because I have 2 dogs. Simba and Sunny like to hang, and Kanoa and Angel like to hang. The parrot's in his own, and then Sparky doesn't have anybody, so he always takes the nearest human to call his own. So I just love that I can be on the couch and they're there, and yeah, I get a lot of love back from my animals.
So I think that so yesterday I had said you can't get what you can't create. And
you can't
so
get what
I
you
think
don't have, yes.
yes,
Yes, or
so
create,
well
yes.
in the sense of you had to first learn how to create within yourself love.
Yes. Yes.
And your pack was small. And as your ability to create more love for self grew, you were able to create more love for others, and then ultimately more animals, and then they were able to generate that same love back to you. And so I think, as you've pointed out, that in order for us to love unconditionally, we have to create love for ourselves first. And
Yes.
sometimes we see it from others, we borrow it from others, we get glimpses of it, but we've got to begin to learn to love ourselves unconditionally if we're ever going to be able to do it for our 4-legged friends, our 2s, or 3s, or whatever odd number legs they
Yes.
have, as well as the people in our lives.
And forgiveness is really important. If you don't have the
Forgiveness
heart to forgive, Eric, then it's really hard to love unconditionally, because there's always going to be things coming from the other side. And I haven't perfected this yet, but it's important. And the forgiveness piece sometimes takes longer, but the shorter you can make it, the better off you'll be. And that's, yeah.
Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's
No.
just accepting, like, okay, that was the best I had in the moment. Like, I realized that was not my best or highest or most loving self, but that was the best I had in that moment. And so I'm going to pass it and forgive it and let it go. I made a decision that in hindsight might not have been great.
Yeah.
But based on the circumstances, the person, and the skills and the knowledge I had in that moment, I did what I felt was right. And so I'm going to forgive myself. I'm not going to forget the lesson. I'm not going to forget the journey. I'm not going to forget the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, let it go. It's in the past. And I always say this, and it's like, who you are now is not who you were then, because you at least have one thing: awareness of what it looks like in hindsight.
Yeah.
So forgive yourself. And I think you're right. I love that idea. I love the way you unpacked unconditional love for us today.
Thank
You have done an amazing job. I am just humbled, and like I said, I often will invite a guest, everybody who wonders how this goes, and I need to get some guest refills. So if you've got recommendations or people that are sitting on the sidelines that would be great, let me know. But I'll often sit and I'll think about them, or I'll walk about them, or I just sort of try and intuitively get an impression, and then I'll hear a word or a thought or an idea. And like with you, I sent you the idea of let's discuss unconditional love, and you were like,
Yes.
"What? Why? Like, how are you doing? Like, why is this me?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but just sit with it for a couple weeks."
True. It's true. I have to say, when that topic came up, I didn't see it as a match for me at all.
And I think you are the perfect teacher. I think you taught that lesson. I know I'm going back and taking notes.
Aw.
I
Thanks.
love the idea that it comes alongside, that it's on the side that we need support, that we don't need to overlove or create an over dependency, and that sometimes we're there for a season, for a day, a moment, and that we might be called back in, and that it begins with hope and it begins with forgiveness, and maybe taking the word love out of it makes it easier for us to just say. And I love when Melanie had posted, if we could see the before and after pictures of all those things and all those places that we've given unconditional love to,
Yeah.
it would
Yes.
probably amaze us. And I'm sure are you still in touch with that first landlord?
I still know her name. Like, if I could bring up her name right now. I don't know if she's still here, but she until this day, she made such a
I imagine
impression.
she would love to see the before and after picture of your life.
Yes, I think you're right. That's very true. Yeah. And
As
that
somebody who's
part of,
been,
I was
yeah,
going to say, the over nurturing piece is you don't want to overwater anything, over nurture. That's not healthy at all. So, um, and people have to be open to being loved, and that's where you can also help them to learn how to love themselves a bit better. It takes time. So
yeah,
I'm still in the process
I
of,
love
of
that.
learning to love myself more and more.
I love that idea of it has to be offered too. And I'm sure sometimes with your rescue animals, as much as you want to give them the big whole box of kibble and bits, you know that they've got to start into the diet slowly and gently, or it all just
Right.
becomes
Well,
a
you mentioned
disaster.
ego, right? How do you make sure that ego is not playing a role in what you're doing? It's by being
Yeah.
able how do you, what's the measurement for that? How do you know when it's ego or is it pure love? If you're
Because
able to,
I teach the lesson, girl. I
no,
could comment on this. There's so many of us that are like, look at I did, look at I did. It's like, really, did you do it for them, or did you do it for the look at I dids? You know, as some people that I know will often receive an award and attend an award, they understand that they have to be there to keep the award and the system and the whole cycle going.
hmm
And so they're doing it because they understand their role in it. And then there's others who will walk up and accept the reward, and they'll stop long enough to get at least 10 good photos. And, it's like, yeah.
Well, eyes, again, coming back to the disc, the eyes love attention. I mean, we do love attention, and we're creative beings. So there's a fine line between people seeing us as egoistic or people that are just off the charts creative and want to be able to see something expand and grow at a quick pace. So they have to kind of filter our personalities in a way that makes us better understood. And sometimes I feel I'm misunderstood. But
I feel like I'm misunderstood all the time.
okay, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about. Being
I,
understood or misunderstood is a fine line between people stepping in to really get to know who you are. And if you haven't taken that time, then I don't think you have a right to judge.
I will agree. And when I joke, I'm often misunderstood. I'll call people. I'm like, am I reading this wrong? Because I get the impression so and so or this or that, and they're like, no, no, you're reading it right. And I'm like, that was not my intent. That was not like I was not even in the like. And they're like, Well, then maybe you need to change the way you approach the situation. Like, okay, I screwed up. I just wanted to be of service, add value, offer So yeah, I have to learn that lesson, and you've reminded me. So anybody that feels like maybe they misunderstood me,
Yeah,
call me. We'll
Joe
talk.
just wrote, misunderstood is when you turn your head sideways.
You're right. It's when you lose that. Yeah. Um, I apologize to anybody that I've ever offended. It has not ever been my intent, though I do know that I offend many people, and so well, I do my best. You have done beyond the best. You have been an amazing Fun Friend Friday.
Thank
You're going to
you.
be doing this like live now once a week. We're going to have the Barbara Little show, or
Oh,
Barbara Little, wrong Barbara, Barbara
Barbara
Leigh.
Leigh.
Lay, I almost
Lay and
said, I
Littles.
know I said little. I don't, because you guys are always together, it seems
Yeah,
like, too.
actually, we have been together a lot, yes. Lay and,
So maybe it's the Barbara and Barbara show.
Lay and
And the two of
Littles.
you do,
We
you
call it
do
Lay and Littles.
lays
Yeah.
and little
Lay
lays.
and Littles.
Um, you can, but you're going to be doing Facebook Lives now. You're going to be doing probably a weekly live Wisdom from the Island show, or
Uh,
what?
if I do anything after this, Eric, I'm going to give you the kudos for
Don't
being
give me
the
the kudos.
impetus
Just
and
give me the notice so I can
the
watch.
the impetus and the infusion to getting me on that degree of traction and headed in that direction. That's you, and that's something that you do really well. You take people out of their comfort zone, and and then you plant
And I
something
drop
that
them
they're
in the
not
middle
even
of nowhere.
knowing. How is this connected to me? How where are you feeling that? Where are you intuitively getting that from? And then you find out on a day like today. So thank
You
you.
Well, you're welcome, but I tell you, you rock today. And when you go back and watch it, and I'll send you the links and things later, you rocked it.
Thanks.
It felt so relaxed and so comfortable. And like I said, I appreciate you willing to put your trust in my hands
Yes.
and just, I know last night when we did the test drive and you were like,
No.
I said, just, I won't let you fall. I won't let you drop.
Yeah.
I will hold you as best I can. And I know you probably woke up in the middle of the night thinking I could just message him and tell him the dogs ate my internet, and get out.
Oh, that's
But you
true.
did an amazing.
I was going to do a preview of Poncho, but he's out in his cage right now. I don't know. Does anybody want to see Ponch? He's
Yes, bring Ponch to the screen.
Okay, hold on.
I know that we were.
I'll be right back.
So we're off to go get the parrot. So I see Joe jumped in, and Joe, you are always a phenomenal note taker. I'm so glad it's raining in Florida for us today, so that you can be here to capture this. I love that. So this has been a great lesson for me today. I really appreciate. There's Ponch. So there is the one and only Ponch.
Okay, let me
How
see.
did he get his name Poncho? Oh, Eric.
Okay.
How did he get his name Poncho?
He's a boy. He's a girl. Actually, you don't know with parrots whether they're male or female, and so I don't know if he's male or female. But Poncho seemed like a cool name for him at the time, and that's what stuck. So this is him. He's he's got beautiful little feathers. Ah, hi. And
Does
that's
he
it.
speak or does he just make noises?
Can you say hello, Ponch? Say hello. Say hello. Hey. Hello. Hey. Hey. Well, he says hello, but he's not speaking right now. So he's
Like my kids.
Yeah, so that's it. But he recently did his share of helping the animals in Tri-Valley for the California fires. I had put him to vote for a calendar, and he got a special selection, and now he barks, actually. He learned how to bark with the dogs. And he's on the calendar. They made a calendar with his picture on it, and they posted him, and so he's also doing a good deed. My animals are also into contributing back by doing things, being on posters to create awareness. So I'm promoting them in the same fashion that I like to live, and my animals are doing the same. I'm role modeling for them, and they're doing the same thing. So how about
I
that?
love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
So I will post. I also post the picture of Pancho on the calendar, and I'll post the Simba in the church and his billboard. So that's it. So say goodbye, everybody.
You see the bird? Do you see the
That's it.
bird?
First animal for you. Woo!
Yeah, our first fun friend, our first feathered fun friend Friday guest. How's that?
I love
Our
you.
first
I love
feathered
you.
fun friend Friday guest. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah. So there he is.
Well,
He's
thank you again, my friend, for being our guest on Fun Friend Friday. You guys, later in the afternoon, I will be converting this over to a podcast. So if you want to go back and listen into the message, you can, or it'll be up on YouTube as well. So you can watch it there. And I will see everybody again on Monday morning at 8 o'clock for another Success Life Live. Thank you, Barbara. I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures.
Oh, yes, I'll send them. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend. Bye, Pug. Say
Bye-bye.
goodbye. Bye. Good.